how does forgiveness play a role when someone is healing from, say, past trauma or past abuse?
It plays a central role in the work. It's part of, so with the training I did, it was part of the really uncomfortable part of it was, of the training and the healing, was addressing all of the resentment we had, all of the anger, and trying to go down to the root of it. Now, what was uncomfortable was that it was difficult to let go of this. Partly because maybe we had the feeling that if we let go, it meant that the bad things didn't happen, or that they weren't that bad, or that we were okay with them happening. And it was, for myself at least, not easy to wrap my mind around the idea that it's got nothing to do with this. It's simply got to do with, if I'm keeping the anger inside of me, I'm polluting my own body, I'm polluting myself, I'm polluting my life. It changes nothing of the past. It changes nothing about my judgment of what happened in the past. All it does is it pollutes my present and pollutes my future. So it's something I've noticed. And, having been there myself, is this sort of conflation of thinking, if you want me to forgive someone, that means you want me to be okay with them and be okay with what they did and say that it's okay. And reality, of course, that's not the case, because you can very well say what happened was inexcusable. What the person did was just terrible. But what am I doing about it? Am I remaining angry about it, or can I label it as being, actually, we could inexcusable? It might say something. It might say something there. Am I okay labeling it as being something terrible and still choose to let go of the anger that is inside of me? And if I do, I have a certain future, and if I don't, I have a future with the anger inside. So what do I want?
Yeah.
So it really is quite central, and they kept on pushing us until we go deeper and deeper and deeper. And at the point where I thought that I dealt with it, or I thought that I was dispassionate, that's when I was being initiated to Cosmo energy healing, and they asked me, the people who took advantage of you and were abusive towards you, if they came to you today and asked you to do healing work with them, would you do it? And I could feel inside of me like going, I just keep them away from me. And they said, if they do, you have to do the work. You don't have to do more than the minimum. But if you want to learn to do this work, you have to accept to do healing work with anyone who asks you. Absolutely anyone, everyone who does it. You don't have to do more than the minimum, but you have to do the minimum. That's your responsibility, that's your duty. Until you're willing to do it with them, you might be reluctantly, but you have to do it. You have to do a good enough quality. Until you're willing to do that, you're still angry about something, so you still need to do some healing work. So that was very uncomfortable, and it really helped me. It really helped me go further, go deeper.
Wow, that's yeah. It's a high level to be able to come to that level of forgiveness of people that have wronged. And I wanted to ask, like in Cosmo Energy, like what is the concept of forgiveness? Like, for example, forgiving someone, they may not even find out that you're forgiving them. So what's the concept with the Cosmo Energy philosophy in forgiving someone, right? Because we think of forgiveness that like, that they actually know about it. So there's a purpose to it. But the person could be passed away already, or it could be someone that you're never going to have contact with again. So what's it doing by forgiving someone that is not even aware of it in the Cosmo Energy philosophy?
So with the approach that we've used that I've learned, it's got nothing to do with the other person.
Hmm.
So we typically use forgiveness letters. So one part of it is forgiving ourselves. So of course we're aware of it. Another part is writing to forgive other people, and we don't show them the letter. We don't tell them anything. It's got nothing to do with them. It's very selfish. It's purely about releasing the resentment and the anger that we have inside of us. And the reason for it is so that we can move forward without the anger, without the resentment. It's There's also a few distinctions here. We tend to think forgiveness is saying that everything that happened is okay, but we make a separation and make a distinction between the actions that happened and the person who did those actions. And you can say, I can still label the action as being terrible and something that ought not have happened, but will I remain angry about it? If I do, I keep the anger inside of me. And if I don't, then I can simply let go of the anger. I can still say it was terrible, and it shouldn't have happened. But it did happen, so what do I do? Keeping the anger inside doesn't change the past. Letting go of it changes the future. It's not easy to do. And it's not saying that it was okay. And this is one of the difficult things for people to flip around in their head is what happened wasn't okay. And the anger that we felt was legitimate and justified. But here also, understanding what anger really is, I mean, I found it really helpful. So before doing this training, I did another training on actually lie detection and understanding emotions and how you use emotions and micro expressions to see if someone is trying to deceive us, to lie to us. So part of it is understanding what the emotion is. And every emotion has a function. So I view emotions as like the dashboard of life. Whatever I'm feeling, or when something happens, I will feel an emotion. The emotion tells me if I should react or shouldn't react, if I'm liking what's happening or not. We've got 5 unpleasant emotions, 1 neutral one, and 1 pleasant one. So the 5 unpleasant ones help us move away from situations that are not good for us, that are toxic or that are dangerous. The function of anger is simply when we have a goal that we want to reach, and there is an obstacle that prevents us from reaching that goal. Anger gives us the strength or the courage to overcome the obstacle or remove the obstacle and reach our goal. And when we understand it, we can then use it. If anger guides us, anger's a very bad strategist. Because like your spouse is late for dinner, you cooked an amazing dinner, you forked out on really nice food, you spent hours in the kitchen, and your spouse is late for dinner, the dinner's cold, you can be angry. So what are you angry about? What was the goal? What's the obstacle? Your goal was to make something that they could enjoy, maybe get some appreciation for it. You put in time, you put in effort. The obstacle was your partner being late, maybe again, maybe because of traffic, maybe because they were dealing with a patient who was having a really severe crisis, and of course, they had to spend more time with them. You can still be angry, but are you angry at them or angry at the situation, or both? Or what is it? If they're always late, maybe it's them. If it's the patient having an emergency, well, you can understand and still be angry. The strategy of saying, I'll break all the plates to release the anger, probably is not a good way of dealing with it. So when we understand it, when we can read it, we can take a step back and think about it. So what I see often, what I experienced is the anger against abuse tends to be, I was expecting something and their behavior was preventing it. So we're angry, we don't really understand why. When we can label it this way, we can go, the thing that I was expecting, was it realistic to expect this? When we understand the person is an abuser, is toxic, might be a narcissist, however we label it, you go, well, what I was expecting was not likely to happen in the first place because of the nature of the person. So then we can be angry at the situation because we wanted to believe it. We really did. It seemed amazing. On paper, it was amazing. We were sold something that was amazing. But then we realize that reality is getting in the way. So are we angry at reality, at the person? Is it a combination of all of this? Are we angry at ourselves because we didn't see it? Because when the person says, it's your fault if things aren't working out, we believe them. All of this is complex, it's messy, there's no clear answer, but the clearer we can understand it, the easier it is to understand where can I move forward, when was it being unrealistic, if I forgive myself, what am I forgiving? And if I'm angry, what was I angry about? But once we take the indicator of anger, keeping it inside of us just makes life more difficult. So what we want to do is we want to be removing the anger as much as possible, accepting the way things are, which also means that releasing the sadness. And that can be really tricky instantly with toxic people because, like we know, they have the fake self. I call it wearing a mask. And so they'll show us a mask that is tailor-made to seduce us. And at the end of a relationship, we mourn not only the relationship, but when we understand the person was toxic, we mourn the very existence of the person that we loved because they never existed. And letting go of that mask is really bizarre. It's mourning a relationship that didn't really exist. It was in our head. Mourning the existence of someone that we loved but who never existed. And then accepting that we were duped. So there's a lot of mourning to do. And this is really messy and tricky. It's difficult to understand how to process it. Even understanding these elements mentally, it's difficult to process emotionally. But when we're making steps in the right direction, it's like I getting this image of you're caught in a spider's web, and there are many different threads holding onto you. Each of them on their own wouldn't hold you down, but there are too many of them. And if you clip them one by one, gradually you get free. So the more we clip, the freer we are. And if anything's holding us back, then if we let go of it, things get easier. That's a
Yeah.
long answer.
I like that
But
analogy about this. I like that analogy about the spider's web because, healing from an abusive relationship, whether it's from childhood or even from adult relationship, it's not that you can just forgive someone and you're healed. It's like you said, it's it's one string of the spider's web at a time, and it takes time. It takes considerable amount of time and patience and self-work to be able to detach from this web that was created that many of us have been stuck in.
yes, and I think it's really important to separate the notion of forgiving on a general level what happened to excusing and saying, I forgive you, so now I let you, kick me on the backside again. It's like, that's not the point. The point is you forgive, you let go, and you learn from it so it doesn't happen again. And if the person tries to kick you again, well, you block it or you move away. I think forgiveness is often, when we grow up, is often used to manipulate us, to say, forgive the person, pretend everything is okay. Like two children fight, one, smashes the other one's toy just because they're really mean, and say, well, you should forgive them. Well, to some extent, yes, but to another extent, no. I mean, what do you mean by forgiving? You're allowed to be angry at it. What will you do to prevent it from happening in the future? If you're angry at the kid, so the other kid smashed your toy, what will you do to prevent it from happening in the future? Of course, asking a child to go through the forgiveness phase is complex. It's still possible. But it's one thing to say it's normal behavior, put up with it. It's something else to say, listen, that kid is aggressive. That kid is mean. That kid isn't reasonable. You made the mistake of letting him play with your toy in the first place because you wanted to be nice. You were taken advantage of. You can release this anger. Don't remain angry against the kid because this is a mean-spirited kid who will do this. That person's behavior is his own prison. So if you're angry at him for staying in his own prison and poisoning his own life and poisoning his own pond, I use this ecosystem image, you're angry at him because he's making his own life miserable, which makes your life more miserable. Yes, it's sad, let go. You made a mistake, forgive yourself. The kid's, a little piece of, a little turd. That's it. Like, if you see a really angry, little child throwing tantrums, it's really sad to see. And if you can have the empathy to go, this is really sad, but I'm staying away, and this person is polluting his own life, it makes it easier to have the forgiveness of the action and still remove the person from our life and identify this. It's just so we don't carry it with us. I think the anger, by the way, is helpful until we've learned the lesson that we had to learn. But as soon as we've learned it, then it's easier to let go of it. It has a function. Holding on to it for too long can be detrimental. And for how long should we do it? Well, we're the ones who know. As long as it's helpful for us, then we're doing our best. And when we can let go, then life gets easier. If we ever get there. We don't have to, but if we can, life gets easier. If that makes sense.
Yeah, it does. No, it's a very important concept that you're touching on here about the forgiveness is for the sole purpose of the healing of the self. It's not done in with an intention of, letting the other person off off the hook, or accepting their behavior, stuff like this. It's purely for healing and self renewal and self growth. That's the whole purpose of forgiving.
Yes, exactly.
So
It's
yeah,
strange enough. It's very selfish. The whole point is that our life improves, and like I said before, we don't have to tell them anything. And if they ask, we don't have to give them any kind of answer. We owe them nothing. That's just about us. There's one image that really helped me tremendously reach that point, because it was not easy to do that with multiple people, be it partners, be it friends, be it colleagues, employers, and so on. And the metaphor goes something like this, or the image. And by the way, for any thought structure or any explanation of the world, to me, it has to answer, to be useful, has to answer at least one of three criteria. First of all, it should be falsifiable. If it's not falsifiable, it's just dogma. Secondly, it should be accurate, deal with data, which also means be able to reliably predict the future. So if I'm dismissing contrary evidence because it doesn't suit me, then I'm using a very bad model. It just means I'm cherry picking to show that the model is right. And if I can't predict the future, or if I'm cherry picking the future, then I'm just being dishonest. And thirdly, if it doesn't answer the two first ones, it should at least make us happy. And if it makes us happy, like people who believe in angels, you can't disprove it. We can't say anything about falsifying, but people who believe it are very happy. So to me, it's very useful. So in this case, I can't disprove it. I can't talk about predicting the future, but it's really helpful. And it goes something like this. It's the idea that before getting down to earth, we are souls somewhere, and the souls pick the body they'll be in, pick the parents they'll have, because those parents will give them the opportunity to learn the lessons they should learn as souls in this life. And so the parents give them the opportunity, life will provide the opportunities. And of course, an opportunity is a challenge, a hardship. So if we have no hardships, we don't learn anything. The harder things are, the bigger the lessons we have to learn, which is difficult, but we're spinning things around into something positive. So it helps us grow, it helps us learn. I think anyone watching this video who's been through any of this will think, I'm a different person to who I was before. Life was easier before, but now I'm a stronger person. I can contribute more to my community, to people around me. I'm a better guardian of my own well-being. So they took something positive out of it. So with this point of view, we're all souls stuck in a human experience. We forget who we were before. Life throws things at us and we see how we deal with it. We can turn it into something positive, or we can become resentful and dark. Now, if you take a step back and you imagine that there's you, Josh, there's me, Fred, and sort of behind us or above us is our soul. I mean, basically inside of us, but just to visualize. Our soul is there, basically giving us the thumbs up when you do the right thing, is, face slapping when we do the wrong thing. When we're doing the right thing, they're rooting for us, they're helping us. Some people gave up on being positive and decided to go dark. And I just imagine the soul inside going, please, not again. Don't do that. Try. I'm rooting for you. I want things to work well. Please stop hurting these people. Please stop. Don't do it. And they're sort of going, no, I'm taking revenge against the world because life was too difficult. So to me, part of the forgiveness and acceptance is going, I make the distinction between the actions and choices of this person and the soul behind. I forgive the soul because the soul did the best it could. And the person made the choices of not listening and making the world a worse place. And imagine that you're downloaded into someone and you want to make the world a better place, and they're destroying everything. You're just feeling heartbroken, maybe guilty, like you could have done a better job. So the forgiveness to me is for the soul, saying, I see you did your best and you didn't manage. What this person did is really sad. It's really disgusting. It's really disgusting, and it's really sad that humans can do this. The fact that they can do it also tells us it's amazing that not everyone is doing it. It's amazing. It's amazing that you don't have more resentful people, destructive people. It's amazing people can turn their challenges into positives, want to be uplifting, because the baseline stops being let's be decent, and the baseline becomes let's be human filth and try to destroy each other. So anyone above that, it becomes a miracle. So you can say, I forgive the soul. I see the actions, and all of these actions, I'm no longer angry against them, because what do I expect from someone who is this sad, pathetic, wounded, resentful, and dark? What do I expect? Of course I expect those actions. And to me, the flip was going from, I expected decency and I'm angry because I didn't get it, to my expectations were misplaced because I didn't see how lowly this person was and how dark and dangerous they were. So I didn't see it. I forgive myself for not seeing. How could I see it? I didn't know it existed. I didn't have the toolbox to see it. Now that I see it, I'm not surprised at what they did. And so I forgive the behavior because it wasn't particularly mean and resentful, given the fact that everything they do is mean and resentful. The baseline is so low, there's nothing out of the ordinary. So I can let go of the behavior that affected me. I can forgive the soul, and I can still say all of the behavior was repulsive, and I stand massively against it. And I will fight against anyone who has this behavior. I'll fight against the behavior, I'll forgive the soul, and I'll still hold them accountable to their choices. So this is, gives some kind of more complex pattern of what's going on. And I'll never say the behavior was okay. It was not okay. That would be lying. Of course, the behavior was not okay. Their choices were not okay. They're their choices. They're making their own life hell. And if I walked into that, hellhole by mistake, I got myself out of there and I'm not going back to another one. And I'll give people warning signs about that looks like a hellhole. Make up your own mind, because I wish that somebody had done that to me. So I'll do what I can to help others.
Yeah.
But that's also just accepting this person is a horrible person living in a hellhole. Whoever walks in is going to suffer a lot. So,
Yeah, it's a very big task to reach this forgiveness, and also forgiving the self. I mean, what's the Cosmo energy philosophy on forgiving the self? I mean, because anyone that has been in an abusive family or an abusive relationship, they tend to, I mean, you look back, when the person looks back on that relationship, they always see things with themselves like, wow, I should have seen those red flags.
mm-hmm.
I should have stood up for myself more. I shouldn't have dated this person. I shouldn't have been so desperate. I should have this, I should have that. There's a lot of forgiveness of the self, probably even more so than the other person. If a person is self responsible, meaning that they have their own self-care and their own soul in mind, they tend to need to forgive themselves more than even the other person. So what is the Cosmo energy philosophy on self-forgiveness? Because it's a very big task to forgive yourself, so
Yeah,
there's a lot there.
It's a huge task, and this is something where talking about it is tricky, because when you talk about it, if you mention any level of responsibility of the person who was harmed, some people might say it sounds like you're victim blaming. And this is not a binary. This is something people don't understand. Levels of responsibility are somewhere between 0% and 100%. It's almost never 100%, and it's almost never exactly 0%. Anything above 0 means some responsibility, so something we can work on. Now, people who accuse others of victim blaming, they're doing binary. They're saying, if you're saying the victim is more than 0%, they have 100% responsibility and no one else does. This is, Scott Adams would call this loser think. This is very unhelpful, unproductive thinking, because it's too extreme. And it doesn't acknowledge, like you said, that whoever's been in the situation feels like they have some responsibility even when they had nearly none. So a child being abused by the parents, like, you're a kid, what your responsibility, it might not be exactly 0, but it's really close. But if you pretend that they have no responsibility, you're not addressing the person's need to address their feeling of guilt and shame and blame and their own responsibility. So having this nuance is helpful. And whatever it might be, 1%, 50%, 0.1%, address it. So the way we do it is, first of all, releasing. So like I mentioned, we work on the emotions we have inside. We release the anger that we have against others, release the anger on ourselves. We do this by working with Cosmo energy, finding where the anger is stored, largely here, largely in the liver. We do forgiveness letters that this is more than Cosmo energy. It's my teachers, Natalie and from Russia, and Sasha from Almaty, who have this. So a list of points where we ask ourselves for forgiveness and forgive ourselves. It's a very, very uncomfortable exercise. and surprisingly thorough. So forgiving ourselves is one huge thing through these two. And one exercise I do with my clients is I sort of do it in 2 steps. So one step is when I'm working with them with energy healing. Sometimes I use I guess it's some form of hypnosis. I get them to imagine themselves at a very difficult point in their life. And I get them to imagine where they'd be sitting, so how old they are, where they'd be sitting. Usually they're like, children or teenagers. They're alone in their room. I get them to describe how they themselves is feeling. So I want them to look from the outside. So they describe it, feeling alone, confused, angry, scared, angry with themselves, and so on. Then I say, well, would you like to go and talk to this child? I talk about the child in the third person. So we visualize them being outside the door, knocking on the door, asking if it's okay to go inside, and asking if it's okay to go towards the child. And then I say, well, what do you want to do? Do you want to talk? Do you want to hug them? What do you want to do? And I get them to have a dialogue where they can tell the kid, I know what you're feeling. It's okay. You're feeling confused in all of these things. And some people are just really mean. And stop beating yourself up. It's not your responsibility. It's not your fault. Mummy and daddy are having problems communicating, and it's not your responsibility. And because their lives are really difficult because of whatever circumstances, they have behaviors that their souls would regret. They're giving in to weaknesses, be it alcohol, be it being unfaithful, substances, too much sugar, too much media, whatever it might be. They're trying to numb themselves because they can't deal with the pain. And unfortunately, they take it out onto you, and it's not your responsibility. So I have them have a conversation like adult towards the child. And, basically just spend a bit of time communicating. And then I get them to say, at one point they have to go. They say, if you need anything, just call me and I'll come back. You're no longer alone. I'll be there for you. As a kid, you're no longer alone. So usually in this image, the kid gets really happy, but says, on one condition, if you need me, will you call me so I can come and be there with you? And so suddenly you have, a friend-friend relationship where they can count on each other. And then, yeah, screw it. I'll just say it because usually I keep this as a surprise. Then I get them, but I'll tell you because it's quite cute. I get them to walk towards the door, and then I say that the kid's got one more question. So they turn around and go, what is it? So, they're asking, do you think one day I'll become a person like you? And usually at that point, they start crying. Or sometimes they start crying. They go, usually they say, well, one day, maybe. So tell the truth. The truth is one day you will become me. So the kid's face lights up and says, if one day I can become you, I don't care how hard it's going to be. I don't care what the challenge is, but it's all going to be worth it. And I promise to be strong, and I promise to be brave. And I promise to do everything I can to deserve to be you. You're amazing. You came, you found me, you helped me, you listened to me. You can even travel in time. Like, you're amazing. You're an amazing human being. I'm so excited. I don't want to be anyone else in the world. I want to become you. And usually at that point, they start crying. And yeah, that's one of the images we use. Then they go away, they come back, and somehow that seems to work on soothing things a lot. Is to imagine. So actually, they come back. It helps them soothe, and then I say, imagine that you're standing, and behind you, you have the child in the past, but right behind you, you have you of yesterday. And then you of 2 days before, and so on. It goes back every single day of your life. And all of these people are looking at you. They have their hands on their shoulders leading up to you. They're all supporting you. They're all rooting for you. The child in the past who brought the emotions inside because it was the best way they had to deal with these emotions that were so complicated. They put them inside not knowing what would happen. It seemed like the only way to deal with it. And they paid a heavy price for it. And they were really sad they had to do it because now they see the price that they were going to pay. but you let them out. You were able to undo this. What they did, you can be grateful. It was a way to protect yourself, but the price that was paid was really heavy. But now you've undone it. Now you've created a better future. And all of the ones behind you are grateful because you did what they were incapable of doing. And in front of you, you have you of tomorrow who's looking at you with a big smile because you made their future better. And behind him or her, there's the one of in 2 days, and you've got all of these future versions of you. They're all looking at you. All of them are supporting you, giving you all their love, all their respect, all their gratitude, because you're one hell of a hero. You've changed so much. And behind all of this line, you have your parents and all of the versions of them, and then the grandparents and great-grandparents. They're all looking at you. And in front of you, you have your descendants and their descendants, all the generations. All of them are looking at you. You've changed your bloodline. You've removed a lot of tension that was there. You've made a huge difference to your bloodline. Your ancestors are so proud of you. Your descendants are so grateful. Everyone's focused on you. And usually when we do this, that leads to a big turnaround, much more peace, much more acceptance. And all of the pain that happened suddenly becomes insignificant in the grand scheme of things, which is our own development. That's why when I say it's very selfish about the forgiveness, it's all about us and what we're doing for our bloodline, the most important thing, and then the people around us. And the rest, it's just, it's about as pleasant as cactus in the underwear, and about as important as cactus in the underwear. You know, you can be angry at the cactus, but it's a cactus. What do you expect? Yes, it was painful. Absolutely. No one's denying it. Let's just try to avoid it in the future. And
yeah. Wow, that's a very powerful process. And it's interesting that you mentioned about how the process is like it's a selfish process, because one thing that we certainly see when people first arrive to start their healing journey is that they are very much the opposite, right? When you're dealing with pain and either current abuse or past abuse and trauma, there's not a lot of self going on. They're always not quite sure what they're feeling. They're not sure where they are. They're always very much heavily focused on either what happened to them or the other person. He's doing this, she's doing that. This is happening to me. There's not really a lot of self in there. So part of the forgiveness process, I like it how you're saying that it's very selfish, because self-care, like self-knowledge, self-awareness, and self-healing, it's all about the self, right? Because if a person is not going to take responsibility for their own soul and to heal and to fulfill their soul's mission in this lifetime that they have, then who's going to do it? So I like it how you're saying that it's selfish, because it really has to be selfish, because no one else is going to come along and do it. So I was just like, I'm just kind of touching on that, because I think it's a nice point that you made, that it is selfish. And people that are not healed are quite the opposite. They're always very either codependent, or they're very much outward and they're focused, or blame, shifting focus, talking about everything apart from the self. So bringing it back into the self and being selfish for the healing process is super important. That's why I like it that you said it.
It's very important, and I think words are unbelievably important to define clearly. Like with forgiveness, what it really is letting go of the resentment and the anger. And it's not about saying something is okay. And this is often misunderstood. And like being selfish is also often misunderstood. Telling people that they shouldn't be selfish is a form of manipulation. Like one of my clients was thinking, she was brought up with a very toxic family. And every time she'd want to put a healthy boundary down, the mother would say, "You're being selfish. If you don't do what I want, you're being selfish." So she always thought, if I do anything for myself, it's selfish. So I can't do anything for myself. Again, very binary thinking, either one or the other. And, I had this conversation with her saying, there's nothing wrong with being selfish. The problem is only being selfish. Being too selfish is a problem, but not being selfish enough is also a problem. It's like having too little empathy is a problem, and having too much empathy is a problem. That's why often you have two extremes that attract each other. It's about having a balance. we assume that more is better than nothing. Well, more is not always better. Past a certain point, it becomes toxic. Too much of anything is toxic. When it comes to being selfish, the two images I like. One is in an airplane. They tell you, in case of loss of oxygen, put on your own oxygen mask before helping others. There are a few reasons for that. First of all, don't assume others need help. They might be doing okay. Trust them. People who need too much help, maybe they just want the attention. And maybe they want us to take care of them so we don't take care of ourselves, and they enjoy seeing that. And also, if we put the mask on others, maybe we're going to become a burden for everyone around us. So maybe it's a good idea to start by thinking, let's not be a burden. Like in medicine, the first principle is do no damage, do no harm. So start by not being a burden to others, and then see what we can contribute. But not being a burden means being selfish. It also means we have a certain duty to carry as much weight as we can in this life, as much responsibility, carry our own cross. And how much is enough? We're the judge. We do our best. If it seems like too much, we can put down however much weight we want, and it's our responsibility. And if someone criticizes us, it's their choice to criticize. We don't have to listen to them. They have no right to tell us we're doing something wrong. And if we think it's not enough, then maybe we can try some more. And it's up to us to figure out what's the right amount. We carry too much, we become a burden to others. We carry not enough, well, we'll figure it out. We'll figure it out. So it's about trusting people. Then there's this this metaphor that I use also to illustrate this, about using a pond. And it's saying everyone's life is like a pond. So it's an ecosystem, sort of closed ecosystem, that has got it's got little fish, little frogs, little plants, water lilies, fireflies, and we want the ecosystem to be healthy. So it's up to us to learn to keep it healthy. As children, people show us, they do their best. Our parents, they do their best to show us, and it's up to us. If we spend our time asking people, what do you think I should do? We can follow their advice. When they tell us to use a pond as a toilet, we can assume that they know what they're talking about. But the end result is that the fish die, the water lilies die, we're polluting our pond. If we spend our time helping other people with their ponds to the detriment of ours, our pond dies also. If we let someone in who uses a pond as a toilet, our pond dies also. So what are we doing to manage our ecosystem well? If we're doing the right thing, we get the right result. If we're not doing the right thing, we don't get the right result. Making sure we take responsibility for what we're doing is really helpful, and then we can attract people who will respect our pond and to also have a healthy relationship with theirs. So if they use their pond as a toilet, we don't have to jump in and clear out the excrement. We don't have to do that. It's their choice. It's their pond. It's sad. But if we've got our hands full managing our own pond, well, good luck to them. It's their choice. We help as much as we can, provided it's not detrimental to our own life. I find sometimes using these metaphors makes it easier to go, I see the pond analogy, and now I see how to do it in my life. Because when they go, but this person needs me, it's like, that's their pond. They want you to help them manage their pond. How is yours doing? Which is being very selfish. And I think using the pond analogy, using the elephant analogy, using the child in the room analogy, makes it easier to separate the self and go, I'm taking care of someone sort of external who's part of me but not really me, instead of it's just me. And it's also helpful to go, you can travel back, you can say, this kid is doing everything for everyone else around them. What do you feel when you look at that child? And that helps take a step back. And often, it's heartbreaking to see, because when we take a step back, we see what's really going on. And
Yeah.
and often as children, we've been taught not to see. We've been taught, follow what you're being told. Don't observe, don't question, don't ask questions, don't take a step back, don't think autonomously, don't be independent. But actually we know what's going on.
Yeah, that's a very difficult discovery that people make. In fact, going back to your pond analogy, which I really like, that's one of the things that we see that people are harboring the most resentment because of, and the thing that they need to forgive themselves for the most is that they were caring for a toxic adult who was basically replaying some form of childhood trauma. And the healthy person was neglecting their own pond in order to validate someone else's unresolved trauma emotions. And when they discover this point that they have been neglecting their own pond, and not only have they neglected their own ponds, but they have been investing their time and energy into an adult who is actually a wounded child, they have a huge amount of resentment, and they are very angry with themselves. They need to forgive themselves because they have thrown away a lot of their valuable time on this earth. They have neglected their own pond, and now they've found themselves in an emotional mess. They don't even really know what they're feeling most of the time. And even more than that, they see that they were actually facilitating this other person's toxic behavior. They were actually like the accomplice. You know how it's like, you know, you were like the accomplice of the crime. It's like, we see a lot that's what people are harboring, a lot of resentment. And the thing that people need to forgive themselves is that they need to forgive themselves that they were actually an aid to the abuser, and at the same time neglecting their own pond, which is a very difficult thing to accept, and then to have to deal with the resentment and the forgiveness. So what would be your kind of like the Cosmo energy philosophy in regards to healing like after making this discovery and the huge amounts of resentment towards the other person, and also the forgiveness of the self, and the you know, the anger towards the self for actually, you know, caring for this other person, like knowingly caring for this other person and neglecting their own pond?
Sure. Well, I guess a combination of answers there, because there's, you know, what I learned from my teachers, what I've integrated with my own work. One of the images that comes to mind, and that I'd sometimes like to verbalize, is saying, it feels like you were up to your neck in the other person's pond, full of their excrement. You were desperately trying to clean it out. And out of the corner of your eye, you could see the glee on their face when they were saying, there's some more over there, and they were about to take another dump in the pond. And actually, out of the corner of your eye, you could see that they were enjoying it, and they were just making life difficult for you, and they weren't doing anything. Because it's usually the thing of, I'm creating an absolute shithole, I get someone else to clear it up. That's, you know, and usually when we get to that, the person goes, yeah, if I was honest with myself, I'd have known it all along. But the self-duplicity was huge. That's difficult to accept. But being able to label it makes it easier to go, actually, that was going on. Then we can deal with it. So what I find really helpful, we spoke last time about the metaphor of the rider and the elephant, that the mind is like a rider sitting on an elephant. This is the conscious mind, the rider that's talking, but underneath is the elephant. So what I find helpful is then to travel back and have the rider talk to the elephant. We do it sometimes the first time, we go back in the past and do it, and ask how the elephant is feeling. And when the person's like, you know, up to their neck in the other person's pond and excrement, to go, you know, I tend to be quite visual with this. I'm picturing your elephant trying to keep the trunk just above the surface of the excrement infected waters, thinking, why are you making me do this? Why? And you're going, well, because blah blah, we have to, what about all of just noise, absolute noise. And the elephant's desperately trying to breathe, and it's really uncomfortable. And you're basically going, you're abusing your own elephant. You're abusing yourself by allowing this to happen. So trying to label this, and, you know, to bring the feeling up, and then go, maybe you just want to say that you're sorry. So there are a few things. First of all, is saying, you know, you felt angry against your elephant. You've done all of these things. You've allowed all of these things to happen to your elephant. You allowed people to insult them, hit them, beat them. You've done all of these things that were really damaging. And then go, maybe you just want to admit it and offer an apology. And usually at that point, you know, they're crying and they're actually verbalizing it. And people are very realistic about what they did that was wrong towards themselves, regardless of the overall, you know, scheme of things. Is it a 1% or 100%? 100% of the self-abuse should be worked on. I don't care if it's 1% or 100% of what really happened. It's 100% of what people can forgive, what's in their power. So it's been helpful to say, this is what I did to my elephant. I'm sorry. And once they've done it, to ask, maybe you want your elephant to forgive you. Because your elephant thinks you don't love your elephant. When did you last say thank you? When were you last grateful? Because you've berated your elephant, you've said it was stupid, and maybe your elephant walked you into the excrement infested pond because your elephant thought it was the right thing to do, because your elephant's trying to make sense of things. When you were growing up, your elephant would get beaten for this and for that, and you didn't defend, and the elephant doesn't know what the hell to do. Your elephant's trying to help you. So maybe you want to, at one point have gratitude to your elephant. You want to admit what you did wrong. And you might want to say, your elephant's afraid that you don't love him or her, and that you take any other elephant in the world over this one. So then we get them to say, well, no, I want my elephant. It's my elephant. And then we switch it and go, maybe you want to apologize to your elephant. And you want to see if your elephant forgives you. Then the elephant does forgive them. So now maybe you want to ask your elephant, do you want a different rider? Because I've been a bad rider. I haven't taken care of you. I haven't shown you love. I haven't protected you. I haven't shown you respect. All of the list in FBI negotiation techniques, they talk about accusation audit. Anything that could be resentful, label it, say it. Give all the reasons why the elephant might say, I'm fed up with this human. I deserve better. And say, based on all of this, does your elephant still want you as a rider? And usually there's a pause. And they go, yes, the elephant still wants me as a rider. And that's when we start crying again. And just so much release is happening. So much of the tension that was inside is being let go. My elephant is forgiving me and still wants me. Okay, now I promise to be a better rider. I promise to have better boundaries. I promise I won't do this. I'll do my best. And so, your elephant knows that you want to reach this, and you will make mistakes. When you make a mistake, just apologize and forgive, and your elephant will make mistakes. If you don't forgive your elephant, why do you want your elephant to forgive you? And your elephant is wonderful. Your elephant does forgive you. But you should give your elephant as much love as the elephant is ready to give you and wants from you. It's a teamwork. And if you're willing to view it as teamwork, you're going to be a better team together. And that helps let go of the past, heal the present, and say, in the future, we'll improve things. And if we make mistakes, it's okay. But let's learn from our mistakes when we make them. And when things are going actually rough for people, to say, we ask them, how is your elephant feeling? And however the elephant feels, we don't argue with it. Your elephant is angry with the abuser. Okay, of course, it's an elephant. You don't tell it that it's stupid. You help release the anger. And once the anger is released, how is the elephant feeling? And at one point, the elephant goes, well, or the rider goes, my elephant feels okay, actually. It seems that everything's all right. When we get to that point, it's much easier to move on, much easier. But until at that point, we're not there yet. And it's a bit like, I was telling someone about this, it's the metaphor of, if a woman is pregnant, you can try to hurry the pregnancy, but it's not a good idea to give birth after 6 months. The process takes the time it takes. Rushing it is not a good idea. Holding it back is not a good idea. We just accept the time it takes and accept that it's part of the process. For some people, unlike pregnancy, for some people it's faster, for others it's slower. As long as we're on the right path and things are improving, we're getting there. Something's improving. And that's huge.
Yeah, it is huge. And everyone takes different amount of time. Some people are slower, some people are faster. Being on the path is probably the most important thing, meaning the time that it takes is not so important. I definitely hear your point there. So
yeah, with the time it takes, I think it takes exactly the right amount of time. And if it takes someone, 40 years to get to the point where they can accept the past, let go and move on, better 40 years than 60. So I saw like people doing the same training as me who are 20 years old, and I'm going like, wow, I'm just so envious of them doing this at the age of 20. And then I think, well, that's their path.
Yeah.
That's the path their soul chose. My soul chose the path that it would take me about 40 years to get here, which is fine. I'm happy with where I'm at. I don't want to be anywhere else. And any time I have any flashback of regrets from the past, I have to remember, if anything had been different, I probably wouldn't be who I am today. And I don't want to risk being anyone different, because I'm really grateful. The pros and cons. The overall package works for me. I've made it work for me. I went from having a package I didn't like to one I did like, and I'm really grateful I could do that. So all's okay. Things are working out. We trust the process. And if it isn't working out, we make more changes until we get the package that works for us. We'll all get there if we want to.
Yeah. Yeah, that's a really good point. And I think we also touched on this last time about how we see other people's lives and we think, oh, if only that was me, but we don't know everything that's going on behind their scenes, So
Mhm.
we've been put in the place that we need to be for our soul mission. And I like how you made it about your point. When you saw the 20-year-olds, you thought to yourself, wow, I'm so much older, but the soul is above time and space, meaning that your body may have been 30 or 40 years old or 25, however old it was at the time, but the soul needed to go through what it needed to go through in order to get there. And maybe the first 20 years of these guys, of this person's life, was significantly more difficult than your life from 0 to 20. So we never understand how the soul actually gets to the point that it is. But I like it how you said that you're able to appreciate the journey rather than looking at other people's situation, because we never really know what someone else's soul is actually involved in.
That's very true. And it's neglecting that the people who are older than me, who look at me and go, wow, you're doing this at such a young age. It's something we forget is, like, if we walk up a mountain, we only see the people who are walking in front of us, ahead of us, not the ones who are walking behind us. And they just see us as being part of the pack that's ahead. We're all on our path. It's all good.
Yeah.
We're all there to help each other out, whichever way we choose to, we want to, we're willing to. Things are working out in the right way. It's we're either aiming upwards or downwards. If we aim upwards, everyone has got their strengths, and we can all contribute. It reminds me of you might remember the cartoon Dungeons and Dragons from the 1980s about
I
these.
think I do.
There's in the opening, these kids go on some what is it, amusement park ride. That's a magical one, and they go from our world to a fantastic world, and they each get different weapons. So one of them gets like a energy bow and arrow. Another one gets an invisibility cape, and one of them, the slightly dorky one, gets the shield. And he goes, "What's the point of having a shield? Like, all of you have got great weapons. I've just got this stupid shield." But then when a dragon attacks them, he protects everyone with the shield from the flames of the dragon. So we all have our role to play. I see with my Cosmo Energy colleagues, some of them, many of them, they're unbelievably strong and powerful, and they do things that I can't begin to imagine. They visualize things. They're really strong with doing Cosmo Energy healing. The stuff they do is mind blowing. But there are one or two things I do really well, where they ask me to go and help them, and that's really humbling. So I remember I was sitting in Kazakhstan, seeing them do this work, and getting incredible results that I couldn't begin to get. At one point, they said, "I'm stuck. I need you to come and help." I'm like, what? Yeah, you do that better than I do. Really? Come. So we all have a role to play, everyone.
Yeah.
And
Yeah. Wow, that's really nice.
and some of us want to play a role, and others choose to make life worse for others. That's really sad. They're on their own. We're together.
Yeah, that's true. Speaking of people that want to make other people's lives really sad, I think everyone will unanimously agree that self-forgiveness is imperative to the healing process. Let's now just finish off with maybe 10 or 15 minutes on, maybe we'll both express our own view on whether it's possible for a person to heal from any form of past trauma or abuse without doing this whole forgiving of their abuser or the person who brought the pain. If it's possible to heal and to move on and recover and to heal everything without forgiving the person. So let's talk about this 10 or 15 minutes, because this is really the topic of controversy. Everyone will agree, yeah, I have to forgive myself. No one will say, no, you shouldn't forgive yourself, it's not healthy. Everyone knows that forgiving yourself is a very necessary part of healing. the people seem to be on the fences about,
Mhm.
do I forgive my parents for abusing me? Do I forgive my ex-husband or my ex-wife for abusing me? Do I forgive my rabbi or my priest for, for
Yep.
manipulating me and physically abusing me and these types of things? So
Mhm.
that's really where the uh, the juicy discussion is. So let's maybe spend 10 minutes on maybe putting forward our own views on it,
Yeah.
and maybe we can finish off with that. So
Yes.
what would you say as far as the Cosmo energy philosophy? If someone came along and said, look, I really want to heal, but I'm not feeling this forgiving my abuser thing, like my priest or my rabbi or my grandfather or whoever you want to put in there, right?
Mhm.
I don't feel it will help me to forgive them. So
Mhm.
let's talk about if that's possible or not, according to just maybe some different opinions and approaches.
Sure. First of all, I think the notion of should, that we use a lot, to me, should is irrelevant.
Mm,
The question of, should I do something or other? My point of view is just going, what result do you want? If you want, like, should the tree be there? It's irrelevant. It is there. What will you do about it? If you want a better view, you can cut it down. Then you lose the apples. If you want the apples, then you lose the view, or maybe you can move your chair. There's a consequence for everything. When it comes to forgiving someone who committed abuse for whatever reason, to me, it's not so much should we do it, but if we do it, what happens? If we do it, what happens? We go further in the healing process. That's what happens. Do we need to go further? We do. The only thing we need to do is breathe. Otherwise, we're dead. Everything else is a choice. Do we want to go further? That depends on us. So we can reach some level of healing without going anywhere near the forgiveness of what's happened, what the other person did. Reaching a level of sufficient healing to be happy enough with our life without forgiving ourselves is very difficult. So that's really a must be, in my sense, in the process of healing. Once we've reached that point of forgiving ourselves, we get some form of closure. Not full, but maybe enough. If it's enough, that's good enough. Is it possible to go further? It is. But the further we go, the harder it is. So it depends what people want. If they're at a point where things are good enough, it's great. They can go on with the rest of their life, keeping some of the anger and resentment inside of them, and overall life is good enough for them. So it's great. Having a life that's good enough is massive. We can't expect life to be perfect. Would life be easier in the future if they were able to reach a higher level of healing now, which might include forgiving the abuse and forgiving the other person? And like I said, it's not saying what happened was okay. It's saying, I see that it wasn't okay. I see the person was led to whatever life of misery and pain where they would inflict pain onto others, and that's pathetically sad. So I see that. The action, I still condemn it, but now I feel sadness that someone would be so um, corrupt. I feel sadness about that. If we can reach that point where we have that vision of forgiveness, life gets easier. Being able to really feel it in our heart is not easy. It's not necessary to do it. If we can do it, things get easier. So that's roughly my take. How do we do it? Let go of more of the anger if we have any. Forgiving ourselves truly really helps. We can be going, yes, you should have known what was going to happen. But talk with your elephant. Your elephant did his or her best. Your younger self did his or her best. You can let go of that anger. And what I find is usually when we really forgive ourselves, the rest is insignificant. The two are tied together. The healing
yeah.
starts inside, then the rest sort of, it's like you forgive yourself, and how should I put it? You have a cockroach on your, let's say, on your jacket. Let go of the jacket, the cockroach falls off. Also, that's sort of the image that comes to mind. It becomes insignificant, and if we do it, things are easier. But the thing that really matters is people finding the life that works for them, whatever it might be, as long as they're the only judges of what works, no one else. And you can say, if you do this, things should be even better. You don't have to do it. If you want to, go for it with all the support. If you don't want to, stay the way you are with all the support and respect. We're all doing our best. So that's the way I view the thing of of forgiving what happened. It helps us go further in the healing, And however far is good enough is up to us to decide. And sometimes we go, I'm happy with where I'm at. And then in the future, we might be ready to go further, or it might never seem necessary or worth it. Actually, one thing that I found helpful, I'm just remembering this, with a forgiveness letter exercise. It takes a long time to do a forgiveness letter. There are a lot of points. It's very uncomfortable. So it happened with me, happened with other people. When my teacher said, if you still have this anger, write a forgiveness letter. And I thought, you want me to do all that work? Like all that work for that human turd? Seriously? I'm not that angry. I'm really not that angry. Just that realization helped me realize I can either go through the process and let go, or I can just let go now and just be done with it. It's like, I'm just letting go. It's not that bad, actually, which is very counterintuitive. But just that realization of I really can't be bothered to write 200 lines about this numbnut, this idiot. I don't want to do that. That made a big switch in my mind.
Yeah.
And then things got easier. So that's my controversial view, which is much easier to express in a conversation than in a few tweets, because all of these things of explaining forgiveness, explaining what I mean, explaining the context. So it's and all of these nuances where if we explain one point, then the others sort of fall into place. And also the forgiveness, to me, arrives after many, many, many steps of work. It doesn't start with it. And it doesn't mean you've forgiven them, allow them back. No way. No. If somebody pushes you into a pit of human filth, you can forgive them. It doesn't mean you let them push you again. It doesn't. And anyone who says, oh, you should let them do it again, that's manipulation. Just stay away from those people.
Yeah.
So that's my take.
Well, I wish I had more of a controversial view myself. In fact, the more that you talk, the more it kind of affirms that we actually share very much the same view on this topic of forgiveness. In fact, when we decided to have this discussion, I remembered that in the Jewish philosophy, I've actually just got the book here. Every night before going to sleep, I'll read it in English because the Hebrew, I'll just have to read it twice. I'll just read it in English. So this is something that is said before going to sleep every night. Okay, it says, "Master of the universe, I hereby forgive anyone who angered or antagonized me or who wronged against me, whether it was my body or whether against my property, whether my honor, whether it was anything that is mine, whether they did so accidentally or whether they did so willfully, whether carelessly or whether purposely, whether through speech, whether through deed, whether deliberation, or whether through a fleeting thought, whether in this transmigration or in from another transmigration. I thereby forgive everyone," right? So this is a very exalted level. And it's interesting because if you look at the commentary down the bottom here, it actually touches on what you said at the start of our discussion. It says, "Before retiring for the evening, it is proper for one to, examine their deeds for the day. Mm-hmm. And should one recall an improper deed, they should acknowledge this and undertake, a self thing to correct their ways." And then it says, "It is also proper to forgive those who have wronged them. And in the merit of this, they will be granted with a longer life," right? Because it is a case of releasing the poison from within you, because the poison that you have for this other person, it's not harming them. It's only harming yourself. It's going back to that saying of, anger and resentment and frustration and these toxic emotions. It's like you've drunken the poison, and the other person is never going to feel any pain from that. You're actually holding the poison inside of you.
Yes.
So the whole purpose of forgiving the other person, according to Jewish philosophy, is to release the toxic emotions from yourself. So exactly. I'm terribly sorry that we can't argue about it. But yeah. And I thought we were going to have a juicy discussion, but it seems that everything we hold exactly the same. So the whole purpose of forgiveness is to release these toxic emotions from yourself, because it's not good for the soul and it's not good for the body. Mm-hmm. And it's not forgiving the person's action. It's not excusing what they did. It's all for the purpose of releasing the negative energy which the person is holding inside themselves. Mm-hmm. Now, when it comes to child abuse and childhood trauma, obviously, like you said, it's the same deal over here. Like it takes a significant amount of time to get to a point where a person can, you know, accept within themselves that, you know, whatever their soul went through, whether as an adult or as a child, was something that was part of the soul's journey. And, you know, reframing is a very important part of the forgiveness process. Like, for example, my wife, who, you know, she's given me permission to talk about this, she had significant childhood abuse, and in her more recent years, like in the last 5 years, she learned more about her family dynamic, about her father and her mother, and the whole family situation, also other things. And she was able to do a lot of reframing, which allowed her to forgive her parents, because the more that she was able to learn and reframe, the more that she realized that, you know, her parents and all the abuse that happened to her were from people who were not doing very well at all in life.
Mm. Yes.
And so what does it benefit a person to hold resentment and anger and frustration towards people that are really failing? They're really failing themselves at life. I mean, it's kind of like, you know, putting your, like making yourself suffer for someone that is, you know, also not doing very well at all. It doesn't seem to be productive. So I certainly hold the same as you. We can't have a very heated discussion on it, because it's, you know, it seems that the Jewish philosophy and everything is exactly the same, which is very nice. But it was nice to talk to you about it, because it just strengthened the whole importance of the purpose of forgiving the misdeeds that happen to us, and it's for the benefit of the soul and the body that is carrying the soul. We have to look after it. So that would be obviously my opinion. And, you know, people that turn up, like you said, people don't always turn up and be able to do, I mean, this is what I read in this book, to forgive everyone like that is a very exalted level spiritually. Like, and it can take a long time, if not a whole lifetime, to even get to that point where you can forgive someone that abused you as a child. Absolutely. Or even abused you as an adult. But the more one gets in touch with themselves, and the more that one gets in touch with their own soul, the more they're able to see things and reframe and see their journey as something that's, for whatever reason, and some things, obviously, you know, you can try as much as you can to connect with it, but this is something that the soul went through. And the question comes back to what you said before. Okay, now how am I gonna benefit from this? How am I gonna grow from this? How am I gonna heal from this? What am I gonna get? What is my soul gonna gain from this that then I can enjoy for my own life and then share with others? So that would be my perspective on forgiveness. So can someone heal without forgiving their abuser? I would say, well, yeah, but the quality of the healing as it progresses, they will be able to also to get the deeper levels of forgiveness for, you know, other people and other things in their past. So it's a process, but they can certainly start without forgiving their abuser and things that happen to them. But it's a qualitative process, meaning the more deeper one gets into the healing process, the more they're able to see what happened as something that their soul, for whatever reason, needed to go through in order to develop in this world. And everyone has a different journey, and the more one is able to advance in this, the more they're able to reach deeper levels of forgiveness of things that happen to their soul. So that would be my view. I'm sure it's not so much different to yours. It seems it's almost exactly the same.
Mm-hmm. I think it's important, like you say, you can go deeper in healing when we do it, when it's the right time to do it. And I think the right time comes after acknowledging objectively what happened, how we felt about it, what worked, what didn't work, doing our own healing, doing our own forgiveness. And then it's sort of optional at the end. If we choose it when we're ready, we go much further. Until we're ready to choose it, there's no point choosing it, no point forcing ourselves. Starting with it probably is detrimental because we don't have a solid foundation. When we have a solid foundation, we can choose to do it and go further. I think also it's important to remember as a principle in systemic psychology is everyone is always doing their best in this life. And if someone is abusive towards anyone, let alone towards children, which is just one of the most repulsive things I can possibly imagine, what makes this the best they can do? And like you say, they're usually severely damaged, severely distorted, have some kind of mental illness or difficult childhood or whatever it might be, which excuses nothing, which simply explains. They still have the agency for the decisions they make. But people can take the wrong turn, sort of go towards the dark side, and then it gets very difficult to get back. And I'm having this image of once everyone's passed away and the souls meet again. Imagine the soul of the abuser who goes, I can't believe to express how sorry I am. You know, when we're at that level, what do? Angry at the soul? The soul goes, I was trapped inside and I couldn't prevent it from happening. And I'm so sorry. So when the person comes, and you can imagine the pain one would feel to be that kind of person. Actually, William Godwin, the philosopher, first anarchist, one of the things he wrote was, virtue is its own reward and vice is its own punishment. And I really like that. We don't need any other kind of reward. You're being virtuous, no one needs to know about it. It feels good. And you're being vicious. You don't need any other kind of punishment. Enjoying vice is a punishment in itself. Even if on the moment it seems enjoyable or seems okay or can be whatever vice people give into. But can you imagine enjoying the vice of abusing someone else, let alone a child? How twisted and horrible and polluted it must be. I can't imagine it. I mean, I've got a lot of empathy and a lot of imagination. I can't go there. It seems like an absolute hell. So that in itself is a punishment. And of course, society should punish and protect and should take the right measures to keep us as safe as possible. And that's one thing. But just to understand that the punishment is part of the punishment is in the action itself. And it reminds me of a story of someone I worked with who was abused as a child. And one of the first times we worked on it, we worked on releasing the emotions that were linked to it. And so releasing the trauma, the anger, the sadness, the fear, all of that confusion, and all of the guilt that she had inside. And we also worked on removing the emotional pain of the event. So we've got two techniques. One is in person, other one we can do remotely just through visualization. So we removed that, and then she was more at peace with it. And she went from hating her abuser with a passion. And the next session, she got to a point where she was forgiving the abuser, going that she thought about it, and she realized the guy was some kind of demented loser, massively sick, hadn't received help, was if for him doing the best he could do was abusing a child, then he was really just a pitiful human being. And she felt disgust and pity, but no longer the anger. And when she had that vision, she was able to then switch that to forgiveness, to go, given the miserable life he had, it's just really sad that he stooped that low. And the next session, she came back, and that was mind-blowing. She said, so during the session, she goes, I realized I'm so proud of everything I did in my life that was fueled by this anger and this wound. I no longer need the anger to fuel me. I'm proud of everything I accomplished. But without that event, I never would have done this. And she said, this might sound insane, but part of me has a bit of gratitude for what happened. Mostly for what I made of it, because I could have gone many different directions. But I'm really happy that I can do something positive of it now, because it sounds insane. I'm like, respect. I've got no idea how you can get that far, because this is next level healing. This is really impressive. Wasn't my suggestion. She did it herself.
Yeah, it's a high level.
That I'm still blown away, absolutely blown away by it.
It's a very high level, and I'm sure that she's benefiting in her life from working on herself that much. And it reminds me of it. I actually did a tweet about a month or so ago, and it was a nice tweet. I said that that you have kind of healed when you see your abuser as the person that needs to heal.
Yes, that's very true. That's
when you can look on your abuser, your past abuser, whether it's from childhood or from past, and you look at them and you feel like, wow, you really need to heal, right? And you look at them like you've got the upper hand and they're down here and they're the one with the the very pathetic, miserable life, and they really need to heal. And you can look on them not with like empathy or pity, but just a very solid fact of, wow, you really need to heal. That's a good place. That's when you know you're on the right track, when you can look at your abuser that, okay, you really need to heal.
I agree.
And wanting healing for other human beings obviously is, you know, something that every person should feel, because it doesn't help the world to have toxic people. And if a person can get to that point within themselves, that's a very good sign that they're progressing in their healing process. But it still is a process. And that client that you just mentioned, it sounds like that she was in a very advanced stages. That's a very nice level to be at.
Yes.
And Frederik, I want to thank you a lot for talking with me today about resentment and about forgiveness and the healing process. I really hope that the viewers, you know, they take away from this something on their own for their own healing journey. And I'm very much looking forward to having future discussions with you also.
Likewise, thank you again for having me back. Thank you.
Thanks very much, Fred.